Thank you. It's me again, it's Luke. I'm the curate here at Ascension, and wow, that was just fantastic. It's just wonderful that Sammy and Winnie and Sophie and Alexander have joined this new family this morning, this big family of God. And pretty much every family, without fail, has family habits. Family habits. These are the kind of things that when you go to someone else's house or you experience a bit of life in another family, they're the kind of things that make you raise your eyebrow and go, what? What was that? What just happened? We don't do that in our family. I'll just give you a couple of examples that I've experienced in my life. I've known families who, without fail, will spend the last waking moments of their days eating breakfast cereal. Anyone do that? Okay, I actually think a fair number of people do that. Okay, fair enough. I've known a family who had pure white carpets throughout their whole house and so had this brutally strict no-shoes regime in their home. I know of one family who between them have completed 1,025 5-kilometer Saturday park runs up and down the country. And I know one family who celebrate not only birthdays every year, but half birthdays every year. I wish that my family had that weird habit. But the list goes on. Every family, including yours when you were growing up or now, has its weird habits. And I wonder what yours are. But for all of their weirdness, these are the things that make a family unique and special. These family habits are special. And right off the bat, I think this morning I really need to make a bit of a caveat to our christening parties here today. I've got to warn you, Sammy and Sophia and Alexander and Winnie and your families and your friends, that the family of God you have just joined is no different. We also have some very weird family habits too. And at a christening, it's kind of like your parents have just signed a waiver saying, okay, we understand that this family of God is inherently quite unusual, and we agree to the risks involved. We agree to these weird habits becoming part of our child's life. And I'm sorry, parents, it's too late. You've done that now. You know, we've baptized them, we've clapped, it's done. It's too late. You're one of us. Now, here at Ascension, over the past weeks, we've been in a sermon series, and we've been trying to put our finger on some of these odd family habits of ours. And we've called the series The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Christians. There's the little image for it there. 7 habits. Not things you have to do to make God happy, rather habits. Behaviors that just will naturally or supernaturally grow as we just get to know God better and better. So over the past Sunday, we have covered 3 of these 7 weird family habits so far. Habit number 1 was going to church. Not that many people do it these days. And from the outside, it might be quite an odd behavior. It's a Sunday morning, you know, why wouldn't you just have a lie-in or go to football club or something? Why go to a big old barn-like building and sing songs? Well, we do it here in the family of God. We go to church. Number 2, habit number 2, speaking about Jesus, not as a swear word, but sincerely. Speaking about Jesus, a person who lived 2,000 years ago. We speak about him as if he's alive right now. And from the outside, again, that's quite odd behavior. And habit number 3 from last week was generosity. Generosity. Holding lightly and loosely to your own things, your own money, your own time, your own possessions, which probably doesn't strike the average person as a very wise long-term plan for life, but there we go. We also do that here in the family of God. That's one of our habits. And today I want to think about a 4th habit together, a 4th weird family habit. Hope. The habit of hope. Now, it's my sense that when you hear people talk about hope most of the time, whether it's politicians or activists or just in the media or just in normal conversation, most of the time when we say the word hope, we mean something like optimism, and perhaps a pretty flimsy optimism at that. I think what I mean is that when I hear people talk about hope, it doesn't fill me with hope. It doesn't fill me with confidence. Someone might say, for example, oh, I hope it doesn't rain for the wedding. what does that make you think? Oh, it's definitely going to rain for the wedding. Or hopefully the traffic will get moving soon. And you're thinking, oh, of course it's not going to get moving soon. This is rubbish. Or after this tragedy, what our community really needs now is a sense of hope. Or we're clinging on to the hope that she might recover. I don't know about you, but when people use hope speak like that, if anything, it actually makes me doubtful, not hopeful. It makes me kind of gear up to expect the worst. And in a crazy kind of way, our hope discourse today has become so denigrated or so thin that it's not really fit for purpose anymore. It no longer actually gives people hope. Well, in the Bible, when you read the word hope, which you will quite a lot, you're hearing something quite different from that. In the Bible, the word hope, more often than not, may just as well be translated anticipation or excitement. Just imagine for a moment that all COVID travel restrictions and uncertainties are just gone. No limitations. And there's a place that you're desperate to visit and you just book it. You book it and you put the date in the diary and you're going. It's as simple as that. And you're spending your time poring over the guidebook that you've bought, and you've gone to Stanford's map shop, and you've gone down into the basement and you found the map of the place that you're going. And you're on Duolingo practicing a few phrases so that you can speak the language when you get there. And you're just so excited and full of expectation and wonder for this trip. That is what hope means in the Bible. Because hope in God is certain hope. It's an attitude to what we are aware is the case, not what might, hopefully, for want of a better word, be the case. And just like, you've booked that trip, you've already booked that ticket to travel wherever, and it's as simple as that, and you're going. Well, in a similar way, as Christians, our hope is in something that has already decisively happened. Our hope has already come to life in Jesus of Nazareth. Jesus of Nazareth was this human being who his first followers came to believe was at one and the same time God. Jesus. He lived with us, he died for us, and he rose from the dead. The Apostle Paul was one of the very first Christians and Christian leaders. And he wrote a letter to the emerging Christian community in Rome, and we've just dipped into a bit of that letter. And in that section that we read, Paul is describing what difference Jesus rising from the dead makes. And he's saying something like this: Jesus' death and resurrection has cosmic consequences. Because Jesus rose from the dead, Paul says, there is now an open door beyond death for people and even for creation, for the world. Jesus' resurrection has made possible, as he puts it, the redemption of our bodies, that's his language, and he also says the liberation of creation. The redemption of our bodies and the liberation of creation. And so for those who follow and trust Jesus, that means that life, from now on, is defined by hope. Sure expectation, sheer excitement, wonderful suspense, because God is going to resurrect the world. That's the eternal horizon of things. That's our Christian hope. Now, this is a certain hope for Paul, but he also says in verse 24 that we read that you can't see it. You can't see this hope. If you could see it, it wouldn't be hope. We can't see Jesus. We don't even know what he looked like. Now, Paul would have had a better idea what Jesus looked like because he knew many people who were Jesus' immediate friends and family. But despite that closeness, Paul still recognizes that hope involves an element of blindness. We can't see Jesus, and we don't know what God's eternal restoration of creation is going to look like or feel like. Reading the Bible, especially the New Testament, is a bit like reading the travel guide. It's like reading the travel guide for that holiday that I mentioned earlier that we booked. It's a good primer, but it's nothing compared to actually arriving and walking around and exploring the actual place. We wait for it in certain hope, in excitement, but we don't know it fully until eternity arrives. But what we do know and can see is the difference that hope in Jesus makes today. And with Paul's help, I want to briefly suggest two habits of hope that are two ways that hope can make a daily difference to us, just day by day. So first, in verse 23, Paul uses this metaphor to describe what a hopeful person is like. And he says, the hopeful people have the first fruits of the Spirit of God. And he's talking about the Spirit that, he said earlier in verse 11, the Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead. That same resurrecting Spirit is at work in Jesus' followers, in you and in me, and we are like the first fruits of the resurrection and the liberation of creation that is to come. Now, if you've tried to grow fruits or vegetables, and if you've had any success, whether in your garden or allotment or at school, you will know what a special moment it is when that first fruit appears. That first little apple on the branch, or that first carrot that you pull up, or those first raspberries popping out on their branches. And you harvest them. You harvest these first fruits, and you taste them. And wow, it is such a special taste because it is the taste of hope. It is the taste of things to come. And when Paul was writing, first fruits had even more significance than that, because for him, he was a Jew, he was writing in a Jewish culture, and it was Jewish custom to offer the first fruits of the harvest to God. And so Paul says in this wonderful metaphor that if you're a follower of Jesus, that first fruit, that rich taste, that flavor of promise is you. You are a little raspberry. You are that first carrot. You are the pristine sheaf of wheat. You are that first hopeful sign of things to come. And so I think one habit of hope is the habit of being first. The habit of hope is the habit of being first. Let me give you some examples. The abolition of the slave trade, the first pioneers of this movement were women and men acting out of their Christian hope. Hospices. The first hospices were set up by Christians, Christian women in France and in England, because they believed dying painfully and slowly needn't mean dying hopelessly. Forgiveness. When you hear a story of forgiveness in the news, say somebody publicly forgives the killer of their child, it is almost invariably a Christian doing the forgiving, being the first to make hope possible in a tragic situation. Each of these are examples of the habit of hope. Individuals being first fruits in their situation. And for us, it may not be something as massive and dramatic as that, but we can nonetheless just enjoy ourselves with this each day. Hope's not a duty, it's a daily delight. And God gives us countless opportunities every day to practice the habit of hope. Little moments where you can have a go at being first, being the first fruit. The first to offer help to a colleague. The first to smile. The first to give up your seat. The first to notice that someone's in need. The first to offer encouragement or affirmation. The first to challenge an injustice. The first to forgive. You can do that literally every day. It's easy to miss those moments, isn't it, out of distraction or fear, but they are there. And so I pray this week that God will give each of us a bedrock of hope, a bedrock of excitement and suspense at God's goodness, and that out of that bedrock, the first fruits will grow for us day by day, that we will be first fruits in our situations. The other metaphor that Paul uses is quite different. It comes in verse 22. Hope, he says, is like the pains of childbirth. The pains of childbirth. Not something I'm going to go through or experience anytime soon, but I nonetheless get what Paul means. Hope hurts, is basically what he's saying. Hope really hurts. And this leads me to my second suggested habit of hope. Hope is the habit of facing up to hurt, of enduring hurt, knowing that it's not going to be forever, knowing that it's not going to have the last word, and that something infinitely precious and good is on the way. The Antonine plague of the year 165 and the plague of Cyprian in 251. These were two epidemics that swept across the Roman Empire. And in a recent book by a historian called Rodney Stark, the book's called The Rise of Christianity, How the Obscure Marginal Jesus Movement Became the Dominant Religious Force in the Western World in a Few Centuries. Rodney Stark says, and he's not a Christian himself, he's a historian, but he describes how when these epidemics happened, the Christians ran towards it and the pagans ran away. Christians stayed in the cities. They provided basic care for the sick. And Stark hypothesizes part of the reason that they did this was because, in his words, Christians believed in life everlasting. In other words, they had hope. They had hope that these plagues and the death that they were seeing around them were not the end. That because of Jesus, resurrection was the ultimate end. So hope is the habit of just being at the coalface of hurt. That's the church's job. That's what the family of God is and does. It gets stuck in where life hurts the most, just like Jesus did. And again, this is something for each of us each day. We all know hurt in our lives and in the lives of people and communities around us. And we all have daily chances to hone our habit of hope, showing care and compassion and commitment where life hurts the most. On Wednesday morning here at church, we had dozens of families coming into church who were refugees. And they had some food and refreshments, and the grown-ups looked through the copious clothing here left over from our Green Week swap shop. They took what they needed from the abundant harvest collection that we had last week, and the children ran around and they played with toys and crafts. And it was a scene of hurt, just knowing what each of these individuals, children, grown-ups, knowing the pangs that they were going through and had gone through. But it was also a scene of hope. It was kind of a declaration that what these families deserve, what's coming to them, is provision and kindness and acceptance. So there were just a couple of hope habits inspired by the Apostle Paul in Romans 8. Number one, be first. You are God's first fruits in the world. So embrace and practice and enjoy that identity day by day. And number two, go through the labor pains, go through the pangs. Look for where the hurt is and run towards it and don't back away. Hope is our family habit. This is what God has called us to be, and this is why it's fun to be a Christian. You can just wake up each morning and you can put on that habit of hope and you can rejoice and be glad because the Spirit of Jesus is at work in you. You are part of God's big plan for the restoration of the world. So Alexander and Sophia and Winnie and Sammy, in the eyes of your mums and dads and families, you are already first fruits. To them, you are amazing and precious miracles, and you hold so much hope and promise. But today, it's my prayer that you would be that to the world, that you would have fun finding your way in this big family of God, and that as you grow up, the Holy Spirit will make you warriors of hope, each in your own special way. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. I would like to invite the band to come up who are going to lead us. We're going to stand. We're going to have a time to worship God. So let's stand together to worship God and perhaps to digest any of that you felt spoke to you, anything that you feel God is calling you to. How is God asking you and encouraging you to be a hopeful person today, to be a first fruit in your life? He is our source of hope. So let's worship him together now.